Okay, we have to talk about Smolder. The champion is ridiculously powerful, and people are still optimizing him to this day, so we can expect his win rate to grow even more over time. However, there are of course already some players who are crazy good with him, and if you are interested in playing Smolder yourself, having a look at how true experts play the champion is definitely a good approach. Therefore, in this video we will analyze the highest ranked Smolder main in Korea, which many people regard as the most competitive server there is. And this one's especially spicy, since in Korea, late-game champions like Smolder tend to not do too well. Early-game champions are much more popular over there, since people in Korea are much more frequently surrendering or opening mid if the early game doesn't go in their favor. Yet still, the rank 1 Smolder player is absolutely crushing it, so let's have a look at his rune and item choices so you can copy those right away. Or, spoiler alert, there is actually one rune you shouldn't copy, but this is why I make these videos, so you can understand the theory and apply it in your games. But we will also of course have a close look at how the rank 1 player acts in-game, because there he 100% knows what he's doing. The skill of following a specific game plan, however, is naturally much harder to learn than just copying optimal rune and item pages. Honing that craft will take time and practice, but this is where the coaching service from my sponsors SoloQ Solution can be a true game changer for you. SoloQ Solution have challenger coaches for all 5 roles, by the way, so no matter what you main or what you like to play, they got you covered. And what they do is very simple. Your coach is basically a private teacher for you. League of Legends is very complicated, but with years of experience, the coach will identify what it is that's holding you back, and then teach you proven strategies to fix these problems in your gameplay, allowing you to climb higher than you've ever climbed before. They've helped countless players already to reach Diamond Elo, even if they'd been hard stuck Silver forever. But one quick caveat, these one-on-one coaching sessions only make sense for you if you also play plenty of solo queue in your free time, because if not, you won't have the opportunity to actually implement what you learn. But if you are a competitive person who finally wants to climb to high elo and play at least 15 hours of solo queue per week, the coaching service from SoloQ Solution is ideal for you. Everything you need, including a link for booking your first session right away, will be in the video description. But first the easy part, Smolder's optimal runes and items. Well, we will first look at the rune page used by the rank 1 player, and maybe you can spot yourself which rune is not optimal here. Because yes, even the best players still make mistakes, no one's perfect. The rune page is Fleet Footwork, Presence of Mind, Legend Bloodline and Coup de Grace, with Biscuit Delivery and Magical Footwear secondary. Now first things first, the keystone of Fleet Footwork is not the problem, it's actually the best keystone you can play, and some of you might remember or even still play against or play with the Arcane Comet rune page, but Fleet Footwork is just much better overall. Arcane Comet had been played for a while because it gives you a lot of pressure with W spam in lane, but people have quickly adapted, they know how dangerous Smolder's W can be and they now are much better at dodging the spell, and Arcane Comet, the rune page, doesn't really do much beyond the lane phase, and beyond the lane phase is where Smolder really starts to shine. However, Fleet Footwork is still very good in lane, giving you better kiting ability, keeping you safe that way through movement speed, while also regenerating your health, which is a big deal for Smolder because building lifesteal is not actually something that comes natural to him. So yeah, Fleet Footwork all the way. But if you guessed that Presence of Mind is the problem on this page, you are 100% correct. This rune is a mistake. You probably already know that Smolder's most important item is Essence Reaver, which he rushes every single game, so Presence of Mind does nothing in terms of mana in the late game, and for early game mana you have Biscuit Delivery as you can see on this page, so you never run no matter what. Presence of Mind is a wasted rune slot. However, many people still take it, even the rank 1 player as you can see, because they simply don't give it a second thought. But if you want to optimize your Smolder, Triumph or Overheal are much better. Both have their merits, so you can pick whatever you like better. Now Legend Bloodline is also very strong on Smolder because it scales alongside with Smolder's natural power curve with your passive stacks, and in the late game this will be your lifesteal insurance. Bloodline plus Fleet Footwork will keep you healthy during teamfights. Coup de Grace is a little bit debatable. Many people also like Cut Down on this champion because of Smolder's naturally low base HP, but Coup de Grace is certainly a valid choice in all stages of the game, especially when you buy that much HP, as you will see the rank 1 player buys a very important HP item. Now Biscuit Delivery we've already addressed, very strong for your early game mana management, and Magical Footwear also a phenomenal ADC rune in general because it saves you 300 gold, and AD carries need their items as fast as possible, so having that 300 extra gold effectively does go a long way. Okay, let's now move on to the item build. As I've already said, the core item is Essence Reaver, so you start Doran's Blade and finish Essence Reaver as fast as possible, and the true core the rank 1 player likes best is Essence Reaver, Lucidity Boots and Spear of Shojin. When Smolder first got released, people were more on the crit game plan to make use of the crit scalings in his kit, but over time it became clear that just spamming spells, being a true spell slinger, is the much better approach. Essence Reaver is of course the key item here because it triggers with your Q. Your Q is basically like a Misfortune Q, a glorified auto attack, so you trigger the sheen and apply it at the same time, which is a natural synergy. And Q truly is your bread and butter. Once you have the 225 passive stacks, you need to be able to spam this in teamfights, so cooldown reduction is key to actually have DPS later on, so cooldown reduction boots are a natural fit as well. Following the same reasoning, Spear of Shojin is then chosen because it gives you incredible cooldown reduction on, well, all your spells, but especially on your non-ultimate spells due to the effect of the item. Additionally, it amplifies your damage when you keep casting spells in fights, which is what Smolder does anyway, while also providing HP, which makes it harder for the enemy to one-shot you. Now your late game item options are for the most part Rapid Fire Cannon, Eclipse, Bloodthirster, Mortar Reminder, or even tanky items like Randuin's Omen or Spirit Visage. You have plenty of options to mix and match depending on the matchup you're in. Maybe you need more damage, maybe you need more safety, so you have to kind of read what the game looks like and how you need to react to the enemy threats. All of these items are very straightforward and self-explanatory, having natural synergies with what Smolder wants to do, but Rapid Fire Cannon deserves some special attention here. Yes, it is one of the most common Smolder items, but I still feel the need to explain the interaction between Rapid Fire Cannon and Smolder's Q, because this really takes your Q to the next level. The item doesn't provide any ability haste, which is, of course, a red flag for Smolder, but the effect is so good, because your Q, as I've said, is a glorified auto attack, so the range extension on Rapid Fire Cannon applies to your Q as well, and getting those long-ranged Q off in late-game teamfights, it really does make a difference, because you apply your AoE burn, true damage to multiple enemies with the Q, and you also are not even in any risk of getting engaged on for casting Q. Definitely a phenomenal late game item, and I 100% recommend you build this every game, especially if you're a beginner Smolder. This makes it so much easier. Eclipse is probably your best overall damage item with its attack damage and cooldown reduction. Bloodthirster gives you more survivability while still coming with good offensive presence, and Mortar Reminder is your best bet against hyper tanks, but usually Smolder doesn't have problems with these. The tank items I would only really recommend against very one-sided compositions. For example, against a full AD comp, Randuin's Omen is great. Against a full AP comp, which is more rare, Spirit Visage is also very good. Anyway, so with that being said, it is time to go into the analysis and see exactly how the rank 1 player plays the game. The lane phase and the early game in general is definitely Smolder's weakest stage of the entire game, since everything he does centers around his passive. Once you got enough stacks, you are very strong of course, but in the early game you naturally don't have any stacks, so your objective here is to farm stacks as much as possible with Q last hits on minions, but also crucially by connecting W and other spells on the opposing laners. By the way, in case you wonder what that was, Alistar tried to flash knock an enemy into tower, but, well, it looks like a misclick and it didn't work out obviously in the end. In any case, the enemy knows about Smolder's game plan, so if you are facing good opponents, they will do whatever they can to deny your scaling. In this situation, the rank 1 player actually gets tower dived by the enemy jungler, which leads to a kill against him, while also denying Smolder the minion wave. And while this is definitely a feel-bad moment that sets you behind quite a bit, you have to keep in mind that the enemy can never truly deny your scaling, but that they are merely delaying it instead. Patience is key therefore, and it is what allows the rank 1 player to prevail even in games like this. All you need to do ultimately is to respect the enemy when they pressure you, and collect passive stacks and farm whenever you can. It's your best bet in any situation, since your entire game plan centers around those passive stacks. And when I say you have to respect the enemy, I really mean it. Here, as you can see, the rank 1 player, being well aware of what his champion can and cannot do, retreats all the way back to the tier 2 tower, allowing the enemy to zone him off the wave completely. But this is of course necessary, because the alternative would be to die and still miss the wave, which is logically even worse. By staying alive, you don't merely deny the kill gold the enemy would get, but you can also still farm some passive stacks on the champions pressuring you. But as always with scaling champions, you need to know when it is time to switch gears, and for Smolder this happens when you finish your first item, Essence Reaver. Not only is your Q now mana positive, which means you regain more mana than you spend on the spell, but also your DPS with Q spam against champions is much higher than before. Smolder can now actually punish the opponent and convert openings into kills. The mid-game with Essence Reaver is also the point where your passive stacks really start taking off, since you can now farm entire waves with your low cooldown AoE Q. The magic number is of course 225, as this number of stacks unlocks the execute burn effect, so look for passive stacks wherever you can. Trust me, the faster you can get there, the better for your overall win percentage on Smolder. Keep in mind, however, that unlocking that effect does not equal an auto win. Yes, you are now a huge threat the enemy must answer at all costs, but especially in games where they managed to get fed while you were still weak, they'll be plenty strong here as well to take advantage of your poor defenses. Yet still, apply your Q damage wherever you can during fights, even if that means you die in the end, as in this example. You are a priority target, but if you're too afraid to fight, your team just gets crushed instead. They need your DPS, so you gotta take some risks here, but of course Smolder should also be as risk-averse as possible while still being useful. It's a fine line, a fine balance to strike, but it's one of the key skills you have to manage when playing this champion. But still, any fight you join will give you even more passive stacks, scaling your damage to dangerous levels, so always participate when you can. Ideally you join fights a bit late, using ultimate from afar when they start, and then go in to fight front to back with Q. This will be even easier into tanky compositions, since you can outkite tanks with E, while they can never ignore your passive no matter how tanky they are, because your passive of course deals true damage. Joining a fight too early, on the other hand, can have dire consequences, especially when you are too careless with your E, so make sure you never get caught off guard. However, the rank 1 player is very consistent with staying safe and usually manages to play with the enemy's greed, baiting them into overextending, and the results are team fights that look more like this. In order to get there though, a clean lane phase is key, so you should also check out my ADC lane phase guide, which should be on your screen right there.